After almost 3 weeks on the road, we were coming to the final few days of our trip. We had seen some amazing sights, but Mongolia still had more to show us. Meet Mongolia's #1 driver, Mongolia's most delightful guide, and me, an Aussie. Come with us to share the extraordinary sights and unique experiences of Mongolia. We left Unkin Heed in the morning with the promise of more discoveries in the Gobi Desert. As we crested each hill, we waited in anticipation of what we would see. There were many hills and much anticipation before this. Yep, we were in the Gobi. Nothingness stretching to the horizon. Oh, and the odd herd of camels.
This is where you have to pee downwind, not upwind.
The flat desert gradually turned into this landscape of small dunes.
Okay, this stop it's kind of got more little sand dunes. Just everywhere, little sand dunes. This is we stop for the girls because they can hide behind the little sand dunes. The breeze is not as strong as it was out on the flat desert.
We never doubted that Otto knew where we were, but when we saw him on top of this sand dune scratching his head, we wondered if maybe we'd be out in the desert a bit longer than expected. Happily, we found the main road again. Then we discovered, where there's a road, there's police. Luckily, this is just a speed reduction measure. Old police cars are parked beside the road to try and encourage drivers to slow down when they see them, in the thought that it actually could be a real police officer. So we happily parked nearby and set up what could only be described as a picnic lunch in the middle of nowhere.
Fake police car. Spot we had our picnic. Very straight road.
Our next stop was the Sorek. Our trip began on this sealed highway before turning off onto a less recognisable type of road. We arrived just before sunset to discover that we weren't the only ones there. This impressive escarpment was once the bottom of an ancient sea. Erosion of the layers of limestone and clay has left this 400-metre long, 30-metre high formation of layered colour. Next morning, we went back to explore the base of these colourful cliffs. At this time of the morning, we were the only people here, and as we clambered across the alien landscape, it was easy to imagine that we were on a whole different planet.
Early morning, waiting for the sun to pick up all the colours in these rocks. Little tiny pieces poking out. People stand on the very edge of those very crumbly rocks.
There was time to explore while we waited for the sun to climb higher into the sky.
She's through.
The colours revealed by the strengthening sun were incredible. After an hour of exploring, it was time to move on and see what other wonders the Gobi could reveal. We stopped to explore a nearby ridge in the hope of finding some caves. No success with the caves, but we did track down a herd of gazelle on our way across the desert expanse, which made for some exhilarating driving. We had a quick stop in Mande Golf, a large regional centre that seems to have more than its fair share of big statues. After stretching our legs, we were back in the car and heading off into the country again, on our favourite sort of road. While the countryside looks sparse and desolate, it's still able to support large wildlife. And we were lucky enough to come across this huge herd of gazelle. Our next destination was Bakkatsuranchulo. As we approached these amazing layered rocks, we spied an eagle's nest halfway up. As we came over the pass, the valley floor spread out before us, surrounded by amazing mountains that were just begging to be explored. But first, of course, it was time for another picnic. There was much to see and explore. When we got to the top of these hills, we were reminded of the ever-present Mongolian wind. These ruins of a monastery from the 17th century were made all the more beautiful by the autumn colour. There were caves to go into, locals to chat to, and even a spring shaped like an eye, which of course was good for improving your sight. We found our final gear camp for the trip and settled in. For breakfast, we were lucky enough to be offered freshly made sheep's intestine dumplings. They tasted as good as they sound. After breakfast, all we needed was some arrig to wash our dumplings down. So when Ulzi spied these two young boys looking after the sheep, she decided that one more family visit might be fun before we got back to the city. We found the family ger, and after a couple of rather large bowls of arrig, we were treated to a traditional Mongolian long song performed by this family member who was studying at the Mongolian State University of Arts and Culture. Back in Ulaanbaatar, we had our final picnic lunch at our guest house accommodation. We had travelled almost 3,500 kilometres on every type of road imaginable. We saw vast scenery, tried new things,
I got my ticket for the long way round, 2 bottles of whiskey for the way, and I sure would like some sweet
and met beautiful people.
And I'm leaving tomorrow, what do you say? When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.
It was truly a trip to remember.